Hello, my name is Mari Takenouchi. I'm a Japanese freelance journalist and I'm a single mother with a 4-year-old boy. Today, I would like to talk about what is going on in Japan, especially in Fukushima, focusing on children's health hazards. And first of all, maybe my name Mari Takenouchi is quite hard to remember, but please remember the title of my blog, Save Kids Japan. In this blog, I wrote everything I wanted to tell you today. So after watching this video, please check out my blog. Right now in Japan, amazing thing is going on. The government of Japan is trying to return the Fukushima residents back to the contaminated area. Okay, this is quite a recent news, and in February 2014, Japan ethos went into full swing. Let me tell you what is going on. Reconstruction Agency announced radiation risk communication package toward residents. Return of Fukushima. Okay, so as I said, this agency, along with 10 other government agencies, they are trying to return the residents back to Fukushima. And additional 50 billion yen, approximately $500 million, and 100 billion yen, approximately $1 billion US dollars, were already allocated for lifting evacuation zones. And also reinforcement of small number based risk communication based on Belarus ethos is going to be started. Let me tell you about ethos later on. And basic information on radiation risk by 11 related agencies, citing UNSCARE. This is a scientific committee in the UN on radiation protection. UNSCARE evaluation, no prospect to see any increase of health impacts among residents and most workers in the future. Actually, I visited UNSCARE in June 2013, telling them about the already emerged health hazards in Fukushima. And I gave them a letter of 50 or 60 pages to them as well, but they, quite sadly, they totally ignore my report. I also told my followers on my Twitter to send letters to the United Nations, especially to UNSCARE. And I think dozens of people, or maybe hundreds, have sent out the emails telling the UN what is going on in Japan, in East Japan, especially in Fukushima. But seems like they totally ignore the health hazards, which is actually happening in Japan. That is quite sad. And on February 19th, 2014, memorandum was concluded between President of Fukushima Medical University and Mr. Jack Rochelle, ICRP Vice Chairman. Okay, Fukushima Medical University is the university where they conduct the thyroid examination on all the Fukushima children. And let me tell you about the issue later. And also, Mr. Jack Rochelle, he is an ICRP Vice Chairman, and at the same time, he is the director of CEPN, which had conducted Belarus ethos. I'll tell you in later pages. Okay, by the way, let me tell you why I am on this video, because I am now currently accused for criminal contempt. And I was really astounded when I heard this news from Fukushima police. One day I got a phone call, that was in the end of January. I was told that Ms. Ryoko Ando. She is a director of Fukushima Ethos. She accused me, she filed accusation to the Fukushima police against me for the following one single tweet. And let me read the tweet itself. Okay, this is my account, Mari Takenouchi, @ Mari's contact. Let me read it to you. Common points of the two criminals of the century. Yasuhiro Nakasone, who introduced nuclear power to Japan. I've never thought that Japan 2011 could be so worn out. And Ryoko Ando, government-side citizen activist, who leads Ethos that has been conducting human experiments. What a world are we seeing 67 years after the war, on the day of Nagasaki. Let me explain briefly. Yasuhiro Nakasone is the politician who introduced nuclear budget for the first time in Japan. And it was in 1954, and right after the Bikini nuclear test incident. There were dozens of fishermen who got exposed to radiation because of the US nuclear testing. And while the people's campaign against nuke was mounting, Mr. Nakasone introduced the nuclear power budget, and under the strategy such as poison could conquer another poison. This strategy was created by a media person who was working for Yomiuri newspaper and Nippon TV, and this strategy was also actually consulted with a CIA agent, and this is a historical fact. And so that was Mr. Nakasone. But I was really surprised when I heard about his interview article after the Fukushima nuclear accident. He said this thing. I thought he felt more responsible on his own deeds. He was the very person who introduced nuclear power to Japan, and there are so many people suffering now in East Japan. And how could he, he just pretend that he has nothing to do with this nuclear accident. And he was saying this lie, and I was like, I felt strong resentment against this. And also the same resentment I felt was toward Ms. Ryoko Ando, who leads Ethos to Fukushima. And she's telling the Fukushima residents that let's get encouraged and keep living here by measuring radiation, carrying dosimeters, and doing whole body counter or whatever, and let's find your own sense of security or something. But the best way, the best solution after nuclear accident is to evacuate. Especially the kids should be evacuated because they are much more vulnerable to radiation and they have no choice. Then the adults, responsible adults, should encourage children and pregnant women to get out of the contaminated area. But she is leading such a group, and at the same time, on the day of Nagasaki, she was saying this kind of thing. And I thought there was some common points between Mr. Nakasone and Ms. Ryoko Ando. Oh, by the way, as you know, Mr. Nakasone was a former prime minister in Japan. And this is a different story, but Mr. Nakasone once built a comfort station when he was in the Navy during the war. And okay, that was another story, but I just wanted to add because I was also working on comfort women issue some years ago. Anyway. So, let me tell you more about Ethos. Actually, Ethos was first conducted in Belarus from 1996 to 2001. It was led by Mr. Jacques Rochelle, a French economist, and as I said, he is now a vice chairman of ICLP, And he even used to work at CEA, Atomic Energy Commission in France. And he's also a director of CEPN, which leads Ethos Project, And this CEPN is supposed to be an NGO, but it is actually funded by French nuclear lobbies such as CEA, EDF, IRSN, and Kojima, now Areva. And the most important thing is, after the Ethos project, and they say that the Ethos project finished quite successfully, but actually in the final meeting, the final speaker of the meeting, she was a pediatrician, local pediatrician, and she said the number of kids who were seriously ill and hospitalized went up 10 times after Ethos project. This is the most important thing. Children's health must be protected most, but Ethos project was eyeing on some economical aspect or cultural aspect, social aspect, and blah blah blah, and they were ignoring the most important factor, children's health. And now Fukushima Ethos started since 2011 after the nuclear accident. And the director is, as I said many times, Ms. Ryoko Ando. She is the accuser of my case right now. And Jack Rochelle, the same person, was invited to Japan. And actually, he was a speaker at Cabinet Office, Japanese Government Cabinet Office in November 2011. And prior to that, he was even invited to Hiroshima, speaking about ethos in 2000. But according to Ms. Ando, she said she came up with the idea ethos, and she came up with even the name ethos by herself. And then afterwards, she encountered Mr. Jack Rochelle. And I thought this story sounded quite unnatural. And I don't know the truth about this, but anyway, I became quite skeptical after listening to her story. I mean, reading her story on some blog. Please let me tell you why I think ethos is so problematic. Because ethos is relying on ICLP. And actually, I have the translation of ICLP, publication 111. Ethos is based on this scientific knowledge. But let me tell you frankly, I believe ICLP is a fraud. It is not telling the truth regarding radiation protection. And it is not only me, there are many people in the world who studied about radiation and who opposes to the theory of ICLP. Let me give you some examples. Actually, I wrote about the ICLP in the foreign blog, Save Kids Japan, titled 5 Reasons Why ICLP is Wrong. And if you look at this page, you can see this video. Actually, this video was taken by Dr. Chris Busby, the leader of ECRR, which is critical against ICLP. And he once interviewed Dr. Jack Valentine, the former scientific secretary, which means the top of ICLP, for 20 years. And after he got retired, he said the following thing. This is not the exact wording, but the meaning-wise, it is the same. Let me read. ICLP may have underestimated the internal radiation effect by 100 times. I think this is a very big scandal. ICLP is considered to be the world standard for radiation protection, but the former leader of ICLP confessed that ICRP's estimation of the internal radiation effect was 100 times lower than real. And but I was quite surprised that there were some ICRP related meetings in Japan after the Fukushima accident, and I found the following word in 2012. ICRP considers that for a given radiation dose, the same radiation risk should be expected whether radiation is from outside or inside the body. I think this is really a scientific fraud. Even an elementary school kid would understand if a poison is outside of their body or inside of their body, which would have more impact. Of course, if you take the poison inside, it will have more impact. But ICRP totally ignores this fact. Okay, so this is a scientist and doctor I respect most, Dr. Yuri Bandrzejewski, and you can see him in the film called Controversies Nucleus by Vladimir Chertkov. And also you can type in his name, then you can find his thesis on the internet. For example, Bandrzejewski 2003, Swiss Weekly something, or Bandrzejewski 2009. You can find some of his thesis, and also here I just printed out. This is a Swiss Medical Weekly by Dr. Yuri Bandrzejewski, Chronic cesium-137 incorporation in children's organs. This is quite important because children get higher concentration of cesium in their organs compared to adults. According to him, 2 or 3 times higher. He's a pathologist as well, so this is quite an important finding in his study. And also, there are both English and Japanese version. This is a proceeding of 2009 ECRR conference, Lesbos, Greece. And Dr. Bandrzejewski reported his finding in here as well. So please check out his papers on the internet later on. And the most important finding of his study is that 10 becquerel per kilogram of cesium incorporation in the body starts causing heart abnormality. This is quite a very important finding, and to deny his finding, somebody has to do the same experiment. Otherwise, nobody can deny it. And he's the only one who conducted the such study. And yeah, we really have to pay special attention to this finding. And he also continued, ICRP standard of 1 millisievert equals 30,000 becquerel per body is not safe. I really think so. I don't know how they convert 1 millisievert to becquerel like this number. And as I said, this is an internal dose thing, and this is quite a scientific fraud once again. Okay, so now the Tokyo University, Japan's top university, is conducting a whole body counter study. And this is led by Professor Hayano and Dr. Tsubokura and other people. And actually I've been sort of arguing with Professor Hayano right now on the internet. Sorry, but they are only in Japanese, so maybe later on I will do some translation and what is going on. But anyway, Professor Hayano is saying that most of Fukushima residents are under 1 millisievert. So they are safe after conducting this study. But as I said, ICRP standard is 1 millisievert equals 30,000 becquerel per body, which means if the person is 60 kilogram adult, 500 becquerel per kilogram. Please remember, low-level radioactive waste level is 100 becquerel per kilogram. So it's already 5 times. How can a person live a healthy life if the person's body is 5 times as much as radioactive waste? It is really nonsense. And by the way, 500 becquerel per kilogram is the current Japanese food standard. This is scary as well. And actually, I met his colleague, Dr. Tsubokura, in Okinawa in 2011 when he visited Okinawa as a lecturer. And he was emphasizing how safe it is in Fukushima. And so I during the question and answer session, I asked him whether he read Dr. Bandazewski's paper, and surprisingly he said yes, and he knew about the theory 10 becquerel per kilogram is causing heart abnormality after Chernobyl. And he confessed that, oh, what can I do? In Fukushima, I feel really worried and troubled, such kind of things. But actually, after that, he wrote this whole body counter thesis, which is spread worldwide. And in the conclusion of the thesis, Fukushima people are safe. So he's having this double standard thing, and I want to ask him why. So this once again, this Mr. Jack Rochelle, ICRP Vice Chairman and also the leader of Ethos Project in Belarus, he wrote a letter to Fukushima Ethos, Ms. Ryoko Ando. And he said such kind of thing. 20 millisievert per year is a good news. But this is contrary to ICRP recommendation 1990. According to 1990, the population in the public should be exposed to less than 1 millisievert per year. So why is it a good news? And also he said this thing in the local Fukushima TV. He said mothers wouldn't understand science. 20 becquerel per kilogram food is okay. But I think Mr. Jack Rochelle doesn't understand science. For example, this one is the Japanese food standard before and after the accident. Actually, before is the actual figures after the measurement of the food. And the bottom line is the average food contamination. That was 0.07 becquerel per kilogram before the accident. And after, the food standard became up to 100 becquerel, it's okay. Most of the food is 100 becquerel. How can a child take it? Even adults, this is too risky. And especially for children, this is nonsense, I think. And also, in this ICRP 111, there is a graph like this. Like if you eat 10 becquerel per day, how much cesium will be incorporated into one's body? This is a line. And it will be more than 1,400 becquerel. And this 1,400 becquerel per body means even for 70 kilogram adult, it will be 20 becquerel per kilogram. This is a dangerous level for heart anomaly. So I really hope Mr. Jack Rochelle would take a look at this video and rethink about what he's saying, and he should study science. He should study Dr. Bantashevsky's paper, I really believe. And this is the most important thing. In Fukushima, what's going on? Actually, Fukushima kids are at risk. There are 75 thyroid cancer and suspected cases, and some with even lymph nodes metastasis. I heard about this from a Fukushima mother. Her friends, who is also a Fukushima mother, had a child. She found her child having this thyroid cancer quite suddenly, and they went to the Fukushima Medical University to have the surgery, and then on the same day another child was waiting for the surgery, and both of them were found to have metastasis in their lymph nodes. That is really shocking. And I made a phone call to Fukushima Medical University, and I asked them, aren't you going to announce this metastasis problem? And then they said, oh, cancer metastasis problem is a personal information, private information, so we cannot announce it publicly. And I was really confused, because Fukushima Medical University is saying that the thyroid cancer is curable, and after the operation people can live long or whatever. But if there is a metastasis, the thing is totally different. Okay, so this is the very important paper which was released after 2011. It was approved on April 26, 2011, and it was edited by Janet Rowley, University of Chicago. And the title is Gain of Chromosome Band 7q11 in Papillary Thyroid Carcinomas of Young Patients is associated with exposed to low-dose radiation. This is so important because those who got thyroid cancer from radiation exposure had alternation of this 7q11 gene band broken into 3 pieces. Usually it gets broken into 2 pieces. It gets separated into 2 pieces. But 40% of the kids who got exposed to radiation and had thyroid cancer got this alternation of the genes. But for those who have not been exposed to radiation and the thyroid cancer, there was none. Such kind of phenomena was found none among those who didn't get exposed to radiation. So this is quite a very clear index, whether the thyroid cancer was caused by radiation or not. And I asked the Fukushima Medical University, why don't you conduct this gene test, and don't you have any plan? And they said, no, we are not going to do that. And I asked the same question to some famous thyroid hospitals in Japan, and their answer was the same. I really don't understand. Why don't they try to find out the cause of thyroid cancer? And if the cause is found, like if there were some children who got this 7q99 gene band separated into 3 pieces, then we can tell that, oh, this thyroid cancer was caused by radiation. Then we have to relocate the kids out of Fukushima. But the government and the doctors do not have any intention to find out this cause, and I really don't understand what they are aiming at. And not only thyroid cancer, leukemia is emerging in Fukushima right now. And quite strangely, government of Japan stopped taking statistics of leukemia after the nuclear accident. Before the nuclear accident, they were taking the statistics, but only after the accident, they stopped statistics of leukemia in Fukushima and in south of Miyagi. And this another thing is quite shocking to me. One ethos supporting scholar, his name is Mr. Nobuhiko Ban. He's a professor of Tokyo Health Medical University. He was actually an expert of leukemia development. He once conducted an animal experiment using mouse, and he found out that only 1 or 2 years after exposure to radiation, aging of hematopoietic stem cell and alternation of SFPI1 gene occur, which causes leukemia only 1 or 2 years after the exposure. This is such a very important finding, and I really don't understand why he still keeps saying that it is safe to live in Fukushima, even though leukemia children started to be found in Fukushima, and he knows such kind of mechanism in gene level. And why can't he let the Fukushima children be exposed to radiation? I really don't understand. And even in Ibaraki Prefecture, heart anomaly rate is rising according to the contamination. I found this chart in a blog made by Ibaraki NGO citizens group person. And Ibaraki is just south of Fukushima. And this prefecture conducts electrocardiogram test for junior high school kids, and that's how they came up with this data. But anyway, I'm really worried about Fukushima children. I really want the Fukushima children be evacuated as soon as possible. And yeah, finally, please check out my blog Save Kids Japan. There I started a petition campaign, and I created the English petition campaign. Actually, my American friend created the petition campaign in English first, and it is called Avast petition. And this is a URL, bit.ly/Mari Takenouchi. And if you cannot remember this URL, please type in Save Kids Japan, and you can find the petition. They are in my blog pages. And yeah, finally, let me tell you something. So,ごめんね、私これ言ったっけ？あ、いえいえ。言った。あ、ごめん。Okay, finally let me tell you something. This is a report published by United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA. The title is Chernobyl, a Continuing Catastrophe. It was published in 2000. And I was really surprised to find the word by Mr. Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General of the United Nations. He says as follows: 3 million children require physical treatment. 3 million children require physical treatment after Chernobyl accident. We cannot find this kind of figure anywhere in IAEA or UNSCARE reports. And why aren't they telling the truth? I was really shocked to find this report. In the United Nations, there is some pressure to hide the truth of Chernobyl and Fukushima, the real health hazards of Chernobyl and Fukushima. And people in the world should wake up to see this fact, and we should stand up to raise our voice to save children's lives in Chernobyl and in Fukushima. I'm a freelance journalist, but before that I am a mother, and I really can't tolerate this fact, what is going on in Chernobyl and in Fukushima and wherever. We really have to give helping hands to the people living in contaminated areas. Thank you very much.